Hello everybody and welcome back to Expert Examiner IELTS. My name is Glyn and in this video we're going to do some feedback on Brian's speaking test. So let's jump in. Good afternoon, my name is Glyn. Would you please tell me your full name?
My name is Brian DeLeon, but you can just call me Brian.
Cool, nice, short, to the point, great. Okay, thank you, Brian. Now, in this first part of the test, I'm going to ask you some questions about yourself. Where are you from, Brian?
I was born and raised in the Philippines. It's in the central Luzon part. This is the biggest island in the Philippines. It's the name of the city is Angeles City. It used to be owned by the American government. But
So already nice range of structures. I like this. I was born and raised and it used to be owned by. So we get this used to, plus we get this passive infinitive used to be owned by. Nice.
now it's owned by the Philippines again, so it's nice.
Get this, it's owned, now it's owned by the Philippines. Just that "the" replacing the. No, I think it is in many varieties of English. The has replaced the in, and it's considered an acceptable form perhaps, but okay. And do you like Angela City?
Oh, I have very conflicting views towards the city. Like,
Cool, nice collocation. Have conflicting views towards something. Nice.
I appreciate the cultural diversity, but I am not a big fan of the religious presence in
Da 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 da. Beautiful intonation. Really, it's American. It's on the money. It's perfect.
the city. There are a lot of people who are very devout Catholics.
Devout Catholics, great.
And when you really try to listen to their preaches or observe the way they live their lives, there would be
Observe the way. Again, we get that the way instead of the way, but it's tiny.
such a disconnect. So I'm like,
Cool. Disconnect. Beautiful.
oh, it's such a city of judgmental people. I would rather, I like the topography, I like
Very nice.
the cityscape. I appreciate a lot of the physical components of a city, but the population itself, there are some
Beautiful. That the population itself, that use of the reflexive pronoun itself, it's just so natural. It's so native-like.
things here and there that would really raise an eyebrow.
I would raise an eyebrow. Cool. Um. All right. I don't want to. I don't want this video to be 4 hours long, so I won't comment on absolutely everything. What are some of the most famous or iconic places in the city?
Okay, so this is going to be a challenge. I don't grow
Cool. So I like the way that if there's a question that possibly presents a problem, the candidate verbalizes it, right? Oh, this is going to be a challenge. Instead of just sitting in silence and hesitating, they oh, whoa, well, this is going to be a challenge. Very nice.
up in Angeles City. I stayed there for about 7 years. And based on this limited time, I know that people loved
Cool. Participle clause based on this limited time, comma, I know that blah, 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 blah.
this old church that was established in 1521.
Old church that was established, cool, so we get some past simple passive. Wonderful variety of grammar already. So precise.
And that was the time when the Spaniards claimed
That was the time when the Spaniards. But again, I'm okay with this "the." I think it's a perfectly acceptable variety form of English. This variety of English where they replace the with the "the." I don't think it doesn't impede understanding at all. And while, if we look at RP, it doesn't follow exactly RP, but for me, it follows a variety of English that is consistent. So I wouldn't mark Brian down for his use of "the" instead of "the." Some examiners, perhaps. I don't think they would, but there may be one or two who might.
claims to have discovered the Philippines. So it's one of the earliest churches in the Philippines. And it is celebrated for having been seen or identified as
For having been seen. Wow, we get A perfect passive gerund for having been seen. It's celebrated for having been seen as beautiful.
The root of Catholicism. And
So there is a mispronunciation there. Brian says the root of Catholicism, the root of Catholicism, 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 but actually it's Catholicism, Catholicism. So not Catholicism, but Catholicism. Again, is that a big problem to mispronounce one word, to have the word stress, one inaccurate word stress? No. We take the test as a whole. And so far, pronunciation has been on the money.
Asia. So yeah, people talk about it all the time.
Okay, thank you. Let's talk about t-shirts now. Do you like wearing t-shirts?
Yes, I do. I appreciate.
Beautiful. Yes, I do. I can't recommend this enough. For candidates to learn about how our auxiliary verbs work in English. So like, yes, I do. Yes, I am. Yes, I have. Yes, I can. Yes, I will. Yes, I should. Something like this. Very, very simple to answer that question. Yes, I do. It shows substitution. It's good. It's natural and it's easy to learn. And I think more candidates should learn it.
Appreciate their flexibility. I think they're unbelievably affordable for everything that they offer. In addition to that, you don't really
Nice cohesive device. In addition to that,
have to overthink your fashion sense when you're just simply wearing a t-shirt. And I think because it's widely used by a lot of people, when you're wearing
notice that intonation. I think because it's widely used by a lot of people, there's a feeling, an anticipation from the listener that something goes da 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 da. That's what we call sustained intonation over long stretches of speech. Da 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 da. I'm already anticipating the next part will be da 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 da. Let's see if we get that. See if you can hear it. It is difficult for candidates to and students and learners and even teachers to hear intonation sometimes. But listen again. Da 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 da.
fashion sense when you're just simply wearing a t-shirt.
Here.
And I think because it's widely used by a lot of people, when you're wearing t-shirts, people feel safer around you. They're not
Da 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 da. People feel safer around you. Da 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 da. Da, 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 da. So very difficult for people to understand the highest levels of pronunciation and exactly what it is we're looking for. A lot of people, I think people have a basic understanding of what is required in grammar. They have not a bad understanding of fluency and coherence, but I don't think they get it. I think overall, most candidates are completely misguided about vocabulary and what is expected, and I think they just don't have any ideas about what's expected in pronunciation. But this is one great example of like a band 9 candidate sustaining intonation over a long stretch of speech.
too intimidated compared to, when I'm wearing a suit, people would be assuming things or a little bit of a disparity between our social status.
And are there any times when it's not suitable to wear a t-shirt?
Oh, of course. There are
Oh, of course. So doing more, oh, of course. So not just, oh, of course, but oh, of course. Using that intonation there to show, like, what is this question? It's an obvious question. There's an easy answer to this question. This is shown not just in the candidate's language, but also in the candidate's intonation.
moments when you would have to attend a business meeting. And if the person that you are having at least this meeting with is of a discerning, affluent type of person.
So you might think that Brian's speech here, you might think that it's not very well connected. You might think that. He is a bit of a careful speaker, but I'm a bit of a careful speaker too. And when I'm in situations, especially when I'm online, I probably use my presentation voice a little bit more. which is a little bit different to my conversational voice. So right now I'm using my conversational voice, and you can probably recognize that my pronunciation here sounds quite a lot like Brian's. And sometimes if I am required to formulate very complex sentences, this can lead to some slight pauses and some just slight slowing down of the way that I pronounce all of my utterances, right? And Brian has that similar pattern of speech, but it is still connected. I promise you, the features of connected speech are there in Brian's answers.
You really want to show your best.
Want to show, right? We don't get want to show, we get want to show. That assimilation, those two T's, want to, become one T, want to show. Connected speech.
And
let's do a little bit more stuff on connected speech. I'll just point it out. I can't focus on all four criteria at the same time because there are so many positive features in Brian's speech.
I think you would get a lot of judgments if
you would get a lot of judgment. So that get a lot of. It's not get a lot of, but it's get a lot of. Get a lot of. That t also becomes a d, which is very common in American English. You would also get a lot of. You would also get a lot of. Let's just listen.
Want to show your best. And I think you would get a lot of judgments if
I think you would get a lot of judgment. So it is perfectly connected.
you are wearing a t-shirt.
If you were wearing a t-shirt. So that's one grammatical error. Let's just listen again.
Want to show your best. And I think you would get a lot of judgments if you are wearing a t-shirt.
Did he say you will or you would?
Want to show your best. And I think you would get a lot of judgments.
I hear would.
If you are wearing a t-shirt.
So just wrong tense there. So we know in our conditionals you would get a lot of judgment if you were wearing a t-shirt.
Rather than being presentable.
And do you prefer buying t-shirts online or in a regular shop?
I would rather buy them online.
Somebody mentioned in the comments too about how Brian sometimes takes a little bit of time at the beginning of questions before he gives his answer, and the person leaving that comment made a comment something like, well, how can you say that this is perfect language production if he has to take some time before he gives his answer? It's normal. It is written in the band descriptors that hesitation is to prepare content, and so I think that's what happens with Brian. He hesitates a little bit at the beginning of the answer to formulate the idea, but he's not using this time to access grammar and vocabulary, trust me. And also we have to keep in mind that this is an online test, so when we do online tests we have to take into account tech problems, internet connection problems, and so there is maybe more generosity. We are more I'm trying to think of a word that you might know that's not generosity, not lenient. Lenient is the right word, but a simpler word. We are more not so strong, not so strict in judging latency, this gap between the question and the answer. If there's a potential internet problem, we will allow a bit more time.
I want to abridge everything in my life, trying to streamline everything and save time.
There's just too much good stuff in there for me to comment on. If I did it, I mean, this is still only part one and we are about 14 minutes through the video. If I comment on everything, this video is going to be crazy long.
We can't deny that there's a lot of convenience when things are just being dropped off the porch and you're just
when things are being dropped off. So again, we get present continuous passive.
Going to grab them. So I really like that.
And do you have any favorite t-shirts?
Oh, I wish I can show you my closet.
I wish I could. So again, a problem with the subjunctive, with this like hypothetical stuff, I wish I could show you. That is the second mistake now with a hypothetical, but I mean, there's so much good grammar and everything on the whole is so precise. For me, that's not a problem. Like I could imagine some native speakers maybe mixing up the conditionals, mixing like first and second, or maybe using wish plus a present tense, possibly. So, with band 9 grammatical accuracy, we think like, are the kind of errors characteristic of the kind of errors that an L1 user, a native speaker, might make. And I think that's so far that's fair to say. Yeah.
All my t-shirts look the same. So it's impossible to pick a favorite because I can't even identify which one is which. They're all black,
Which one is which?
round neck t-shirts, and they kind of give me a
Round neck t-shirts, topic specific vocab.
really nice shape.
Okay, thank you. Now, in this next part of the...
Okay, so comments on part one. Answers, length of the answers are perhaps a little bit long, but I think that's okay. Many Band 9 candidates have answers that are a little bit long. Of course, we don't want it too long. I think Maxime's test, previous candidate we had here, his answers were like excessively long. Brian's aren't excessively long. They're maybe just slightly longer than ideal, but fully extended. There's no repetition of ideas. The vocab is, maybe even more impressive than the vocab I would use in an IELTS test. Grammatical range is just superb. That range of structures, flexibly jumping between passive voice, active voice, but you're also using like passive infinitives, passive gerunds, perfect passive gerunds, that full range of passivity. Maybe that's like the subjunctive, the conditional mood is maybe just slightly off. If I had to criticize anything, pronunciation is just absolutely on the money. I think, understanding him effortlessly, absolutely effortlessly, just like speaking to an American friend, exactly the same, no difference. He is a precise speaker, a careful speaker, but that's absolutely fine. I consider myself to be generally a careful speaker too.
The test, I'm going to give you a topic, and
so let's see how he does in part two. I don't think this is going to create many problems for him, but his task is to talk about a time when he had to do something in a hurry, so to do something quickly, to rush to do something. Let's see how he does.
End of your preparation time. To remind you, you will have between 1 and 2 minutes to give your talk, and I will let you know when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please?
Sure. I must admit, this is going to be a really embarrassing story.
Wonderful hook. So this is showing super high level stuff. It's not just that he's a good English speaker, it's that he's a good presenter, and he has a stylistic approach to this where he's starting with a hook. I must admit, this is going to be an embarrassing story. So this instigates or provokes interest in the listener.
So I'm going to preface it with that. However, in an attempt to talk about this,
I would just say be careful with it's not a digression, but you're just taking a bit of time to get into it. Remember, you only have 2 minutes to do this. So, if you have 5 minutes, then you could really, let that really flow, where you could build up and you could build anticipation and things like this. But when you have 2 minutes, have to be careful.
I'm going to share a time when I was very late for my flight. And I think we've all experienced like barely cutting it.
Cool. So I think we've all, so again, this is a stylistic thing where we are speaking to the interlocutor, me, and he's speaking to the candidates and any potential listener. We've all been in that situation when blah, blah, blah. Nice.
To the closing of the gates, the airport. I am used to having someone
Cool. Be used to doing something. Very nice.
else organize my day for me.
I'm used to having someone else organize. Now, you have no idea what goes into this. I am used to having someone else organize. So what do we have here? We have this construction, be used to doing something, right? Which is, we teach it at B2, but students never really acquire this language at B2, and even at C1 we get be used to do something, be used to do. But Brian shows his awareness, be used to doing something. But not only that, I'm used to having somebody else organize this, have somebody do something. So no to in this sentence, right? We have like full infinitive verb, object, infinitive patterns. Ask somebody to do something, tell somebody to do something, advise somebody to do something, expect somebody to do something, want somebody to do something. But sometimes we have this thing called the bare infinitive without the to. Let somebody do something, make somebody do something, but also have somebody do something, which is causative active. There are not many not many students of English who know about the causative active. They might know about the causative passive, like have something done. I have my haircut every month, or I have my oil changed once a month, or I'm having my walls painted at the moment. They might learn that have something done in the passive, but have somebody do something in the active. And to combine that with be used to having somebody else organize. Again, I don't think Brian has learned this grammar. I think he's just acquired English just like I've acquired English. I don't think he's learned it. I think he has just acquired this language. He has absorbed it.
Because, I don't work alone. I work in a team. And when you have an assistant, they plan everything for you. My most recent trip to the Philippines is a personal trip, and I forgot to put it on my organizer or to record it on my phone. What happened next was
Again, stylistic. What happened next was this is a cleft sentence. It's often used in stories, and it's often used to prepare the listener to say, hey, we're moving on. It's signposting language. It's very high level stuff. What happened next was it's not that difficult to learn, but to really find those opportunities to use these cleft sentences. And IELTS Part 2, if I'm training candidates to, get those higher levels, to get like band 8 with IELTS Part 2, a lot of training on cleft sentences goes into it. So what I want to talk to you about is, well, what happened next was, then what happened was, so all of those type of constructions, and Brian is really nailing it.
I completely lost the date on my ticket.
So notice the dramatic thing here, that the pronunciation becomes more staccato. Staccato. That is staccato pronunciation, and we might use it in a dramatic thing. So he started off by saying, with the intonation, with like, so this is really embarrassing, and I think we've all been in this situation when we were late for the airport. And then what happened next was, and then he slips into this staccato, dramatic intonation to really hammer the point home. And I think Brian mentioned that he does some public speaking, and I imagine that he is a very, very well-trained public speaker.
Next was I completely lost the date on my ticket.
I completely lost the date on my ticket. You can feel almost a little bit of frustration or a little bit of anger there. And when we're angry, we use this staccato intonation. So again, when we look at the band descriptors and we look at this notion of, I don't know if it's in the public band descriptors, but we see this idea of conveying meaning through pronunciation, conveying meaning through intonation, conveying emotion, elevating your message, not just using your language, but using the correct and the appropriate intonation to support the language that you're using. It's the highest level stuff.
I overslept in the afternoon, and
I mix that in with a nice little overslept. Perfect.
I woke up because my friend thought I was already at the airport. And they're like, Brian, the gates are closing in 30.
Beautiful reported speech, but using like direct speech. They were like, Brian. They were like, not they said, not they told me. They were like used with reported with direct speech, reporting what someone else said, but using their direct speech. They were like, Brian, and also changing the intonation to show that he's voicing another speaker. Again, this is not even IELTS related stuff. This is like dramatic storytelling technique.
30 minutes. What the hell are you thinking? And, in a hurry, I had to grab everything without even looking. I meant it was such an indiscriminate.
And notice how his speech speeds up when he says, after he said in a hurry, and his speech speeds up after this too, because again the speech is mimicking, it's parallel, it's copying the story that he's telling. Incredible.
3-minute grab of anything that I could reach for. And then I put it all in my suitcase, ran to the airport. And when I was there, I realized I wasn't even wearing matching footgear. And it was embarrassing because on one hand, I was wearing basketball shoes. On one foot, sorry, I was wearing basketball shoes.
I love that play on words. On the one hand, on the one foot, it's yeah, very nice.
And then the other one was a running shoe. As soon as I got there, my friends were laughing because I looked like a train wreck.
I looked like a train wreck. Beautiful.
And I just told them the truth that I failed to organize my own day. I've grown dependent on other people, and this is a very important trip. It shows that sometimes my priorities are misaligned.
Thank you. And he ends it there with my priorities are misaligned. So great. Part two, really an absolutely phenomenal performance. I have seen around the YouTube some wonderful band nines, and I think Brian is right up there with the very best. I do have I think there was one Indian candidate called Saba or something like this. I absolutely loved her performance. Absolutely loved her speaking. I just thought it was incredible. But I think Brian's is right up there with that. All right, so you've been... I don't even know if we need to go to part three. We will go to part three. We're already on 26 minutes. So, yeah, we'll go to part three, but we won't spend too much time talking about a time when you had to do something in a hurry. Let's talk about doing things quickly. What are the benefits of making fast decisions?
People who are able to make decisions quickly can
get a nice paraphrase,
save a lot of time for themselves. And when you are doing that, you are freeing yourself and making yourself available for other things. There are people, though, who do not believe that doing things in a hurry would equate in quality work. And I'm one of those people. I like preparing things ahead of time and being more organized.
So the extension is great. The flow of the turn is great.
I think another benefit of doing things in a hurry is being able to exhibit a little bit of mastery. You know, when you are able to do things quickly, people are convinced that you're a little bit of an authority when it comes to this. They're like, oh, it's effortless, it's quick, maybe he's really good at this. And they tend to respect that.
I would say maybe just be careful with the pronoun there. Like we said, when a person, maybe he's really good at that. I know it's just a minor thing, but maybe they are really good at that, because it's not only men who can do things quickly, it's also women. And I know Brian is not being sexist here, but this is just the way that we speak in English, that if we refer to gender neutral things like people, a person, a teacher, a secretary, a doctor, those things could be either male or female, and so we tend to use pronoun they, them, their, rather than he, his, him.
We live in a world
he, him, his,
where people no longer care about distance, they care about time. So if you can deliver something at a short time...
It's quite a sophisticated idea, and maybe, you know, it's nice listening to Brian. I think he has interesting points of views. I just don't know whether an IELTS test is the best place to put forward very sophisticated ideas. Again, even for high-level candidates, I usually just tell them, keep your ideas simple. Think, you know, think of Family Feud, right, with Steve Harvey. Like, we asked 100 people. Better to go with the answer. I know sometimes it can feel like we're dumbing down our answers a little bit, but if we get into sophisticated content, this sometimes can lead to our answers becoming a little bit too long.
People would favor your work. There's a little bit of bias towards that.
Don't you think, on the other hand, that people who make decisions too quickly could be judged as being maybe disorganized?
That is a very big possibility. And to be honest, I find people who make decisions quickly a little bit more callous. I'm one of those people.
Callous means cruel.
Who wait.
That's a comment for the other candidates watching this, not for Brian.
Being my options. I grew up as that high school kid who tries to write every pro and con of a situation. There are some people who are able to deliver results and able to make the right decisions quickly. That's because they base it on their experiences. But we should always question if this is the right way and if it optimizes our time.
Rather than optimizes, if it optimizes. So stress on the first syllable there, optimizes. And I know maybe there's a shift in the word stress, optimizes. Maybe there's an intentional shift for dramatic effect, but I still think it optimizes, not optimizes.
Because if there's no rush, why are we trying to be fast instead of being effective and efficient? I think our bias towards speed is the reason why we are generally stressed out as a population.
So again, we're getting into now really deep things, right? The reasons why, as a population or as a generation, why we are stressed. And I don't know if an IELTS exam is the place to really explore the reasons why humans are more stressed than they were in the past. Although that could be an IELTS question.
We're trying to do everything quickly, and there's no prize for that, really.
And do you think this problem will get better or worse in the future?
Oh, worse. Just, I always questioned the way people favor productivity. And now productivity is being linked
But it is, we're having a discussion. I'm digging into some of his answers and asking him to explore further, and he has no problems doing that.
towards multitasking or delivering things on time. And then they've taken it a bit further by favoring people who can deliver before the deadline. And this kind of
Before the deadline, we get that little dot in there. It's okay.
bias is not healthy. We have found a way to minimize the
It's not healthy. It's almost pleading. The pronunciation is almost pleading, like begging people to stop living this way. And again, that's a great example of pronunciation conveying or elevating the language.
value of sleep. We no longer engage in a
I think enhancing meaning is the term that's used in the criteria.
lot of social interactions. So in the future, I think the constant appreciation for speed over quality, balance, and wellness will actually work
So that's a really complex noun group. Let's just listen to that again.
over quality, balance,
I
and
have to go back even further.
engage in a lot of social interactions. So in the future, I think the constant appreciation for speed
The constant appreciation for speed
over quality, balance, and wellness
over quality, balance, and wellness. The constant appreciation for speed over something, balance, and wellness. That's all a subject, but that's okay because Brian doesn't need to think that that's my subject and now I need a verb because he's internalized this language.
will actually worsen.
So instead of get worse, he uses worsen. Nice. Of course, being forced to do things too quickly can often lead to higher levels of stress. What advice could you give to someone who's feeling particularly stressed?
Always question things. I am a little bit of a nonconformist. I think there's a little bit of relief when you question things and find your own peace in having a different answer.
Actually, it's a very sophisticated and actually a good point.
One of these concepts nowadays would have to be work-life balance, and I'm completely against this. At the sound of being crass, I think it's bullshit.
Cool. At the sound of being crass. So at least he prefaces, right? He uses a swear word, bullshit, but at least he, kind of apologizes for it beforehand. I would still strongly recommend every single candidate out there do not use words like bullshit or the F word or any other words just avoid them. There's always something. It's absolute nonsense, right? You could use that. Now I know Brian knows that it's a test, it's a practice test. He's speaking to me, not a real, it's not in the real IELTS test, so he feels okay using it. But I still think that people should use this opportunity to practice how they would speak in the real test. And certainly there are many examiners who might be turned off by that kind of language. They might feel that it's not situationally appropriate. And so, you can say BS. It's absolute BS. That's okay. Or it's absolute nonsense. That's fine. But I would avoid using bullshit.
Nobody should be working as much as they are living. You should be living more than you are working. And
Cool. Very nice stylistic there.
to me, if you are constantly trying to get ahead of
Cool. So that use of the continuous, if you are constantly. Now, usually, right, with our adverbs of frequency, always, sometimes, never, we usually use present simple, right? I usually wake up at 9 o'clock. I often have breakfast at home. But what about this continuous? Well, Brian used continuous with constantly. Is it a mistake? No. At B2 and C1, we teach people how to use present continuous with maximalist adverbs, never, always, constantly, to show that you are annoyed by something or to show that something is unusual. So my teachers are always criticizing me. It's annoying. Or if something is unusual. Every time I leave my house, I see this man, and he's always wearing this strange orange hat. He's always wearing it. He's constantly doing it. Very high level stuff.
time.
Again, I mentioned that we teach it at B2. What I mean there is we introduce it for the first time at B2. So we expose students to it at B2. We say, yeah, look at this interesting use of present continuous. But again, it's one of those things that students don't internalize. They usually acquire present continuous very quickly, much more quickly than present simple. And so they have a chance maybe to acquire it, but I don't hear it too often.
You're actually chasing your own graveyard. Like, what are you going to get at the end? Make sure that you are dedicating time to significant
Again, notice the pleading pronunciation.
human experiences or building better relationships with people. There's no reward to finishing first in life. That's just, again, the graveyard.
Lots of food for thought, a lot of ideas to think about. Yeah.
So, yeah, don't
Of course,
care.
the development of tech. My first education was in philosophy, and I have a lot that I would like to respond to, but no, I'm going to stick to being an examiner. Technology can also lead to higher levels of stress, but can you think of any ways in which we could use technology to help us overcome problems with stress?
Yes, of course. There's a lot of smart technology that we have nowadays, artificial intelligence being one of them, generative AI. Um, leave the planning and forecasting to AI. They may not be as flexible as humans, but they're using algorithms and they're keeping a database of human behavior. So to me, if there are other things that require planning and predicting, use artificial intelligence for that. One thing that really bothers me is our misconception of technology. I think we are convinced that we are supposed to catch up to technology or
Again, I'm not saying much, but I'm sure you can hear it for yourself. A lot, just super, super precise vocab and grammar, just incredibly precise.
technology should not surpass human capacity. And that's the reason why we're so stressed out. People are afraid that the capacity of artificial intelligence would displace them from their actual jobs.
Maybe will displace them instead of would. People are afraid that technology will displace them. People could be afraid that technology would displace them, maybe, but I'm not sure about this would just for simple future predictions. But again, is that a mistake, an error that an L1 user would use? Sure, yes.
Or they'd lose their place in the industry. That's just not true because I think people are hardwired to appreciate human touch.
To be hardwired to do something, kid.
So
Okay,
always
thank you.
rely on.
Thank you. That is the end of the test. Alrighty then, so let's get into some marks, shall we? I think this one will be probably the easiest one that I've ever marked. So, fluency and coherence, I think I'm going to give a 9.0. Do I need to add comments? I guess for my own OCD, I will. Language. Language comes to you effortlessly, without any language related pauses. You extend your answers expertly. Sometimes, perhaps, your answers are just slightly longer than perfect. Just slightly. You know, your natural language skills mean that you're going to get 9 for this anyway. So just keep in mind, again, exam technique, if you were training, if you were actually going to take this IELTS exam, you could just have a 60-minute meeting with somebody, probably to give you one test, to give you a little bit of direct feedback, to say, do this, do that, practice doing a couple of things, and you'll be fine. Lexical resource, 9 out of 9 there. Cool. Let's say you know everything. You know everything. It's appropriate. Someone also mentioned in the comment section asking about like the level of formality. They said that the candidate switched between formal and casual, and I don't think he did that. I think it was mostly neutral throughout. Some of the questions required slightly more academic and sophisticated answers, and so that language was used, and sometimes you were giving your opinion about things, and sometimes some of the things like work-life balance that you weren't very happy about, you dropped the register a little bit to show your frustration. I think that's just the way that we naturally use language. Once you know everything, let's say something. You have a full. Well, you use all vocab items appropriately. You demonstrate absolute full flexibility and can speak about any topic with ease. Cool. Grammatical range and accuracy, I think for this one I'm going to give a 9.0. So even though, I'll start with the negatives, even though there are a few, I think there were 3 or 4, even though there are a few grammatical, I don't know if I want to call them errors, I'll call them errors in, few grammatical errors. These are typical of L1 users. Your range of sentences is full. You have a phenomenal range of structures. The amount of structures, of constructions that we use, every piece of difficult grammar that I've ever taught, apart from perhaps inversion, every difficult piece of grammar that I've taught, you used. But Maxime used inversion. He said seldom do people think about this. So, you know, kudos to Max for that. But a phenomenal range of structures, just absolute incredible. Yeah, great. Pronunciation, I think I'm going to award 9.0. Why am I saying 9.0? There are no half marks for the individual parts, of course. Pronunciation, a full phonological range. Full range of phonological features. Your intonation enhances the meaning of your language. I'll just say enhances your language. So you can feel the emotion, you can feel the pleading, you can feel when you're frustrated and things like that through your intonation. Connected speech is sustained despite you being a fairly careful speaker. Doesn't mean that you're not fluent. People often think that, you know, careful speakers aren't fluent. That's not necessarily true. I think I'm a fluent speaker, but I'm also a careful speaker. You have some potentially questionable pronunciation of the mother. Now, so there are, my other education is in sociolinguistics, and one of the concepts we looked at there is something called language ideologies, two language ideologies, prescriptivism and descriptivism. And basically, the prescriptivists are a group of people who say that no, English should be taught this way and English should be used this way, and this is absolutely correct and this is absolutely incorrect. And so those people would say no, th in English is the or th, and all other pronunciations are problematic. The problem with that, of course, is that only about 0.2% of British people use RP. It's very, very underused. And we do see it. You know, we have a lot of cultural diversity in the UK, and a lot of people speak with different accents, and a lot of people use d and t, like dating, and a lot of people use v and f, like vat thing. So the descriptivists say that that's the opposite of the prescriptivists. The descriptivists say that, well, all language use is interesting and all language use is worthy of study. And, you know, if enough people start using this pronunciation feature or grammatical feature or vocabulary item, then it becomes acceptable, right? Like the word cringe. Cringe used to be a verb. Nowadays it's used more often as an adjective, like, oh, that's so cringe. Certainly the prescriptivists say no, cringe must be a verb, but it's now accepted, it's in the dictionary that cringe can be used as an adjective as well. And so with your pronunciation of de, like when I went to the Philippines, for me, that's absolutely fine. It's accepted. Okay, so overall, sorry, I went on a linguistic tangent there. I shouldn't do that too much. Overall, 9.0, not bad. Not bad. I think there is some room for improvement. No, things to work on. I'm not going to write anything here. I think, you know, I would listen to your advice, Brian, if you gave me advice on my English and things to work on my English. I think you have every right to give me feedback on my English as I have to give you feedback on your English. I think your English is just as good as mine, just as good as any other L1 user, and you fully deserve your C2. So congratulations. Really fun to give feedback on this. I hope you found some things constructive or instructive. I don't think it's a good idea all the time for candidates to look at Band 9 speakers. I know IELTS Advantage, I have some things to say about them. I know they promote a lot of 9.0 candidates, but I don't think it's great for students and candidates always to see it. I think candidates should think about their ideal band score, right? What do I need? What do I want? Look at the 6.5, look at the 7s, because it's achievable. You can see if you need a 6.5 or a 7 and your level is a 6, it's very easy to see what those 6.5s and 7s are doing, and it's achievable, and you can think like, yeah, I can do that if I just do this, or I like this expression they use, or I like the way that they fill their pauses with this. I think it's more instructive to do that. Looking at how candidates who get Band 9 perform, I think sometimes it can be demotivating because these speakers are out of this world, and I put Brian in that category, and also I put Maxime in that category too. He is an out of this world speaker. Anyway, I've spoken enough. I hope you found the video interesting. If you have any comments, leave them below. Please do like the video, subscribe, do all of that good stuff. I mentioned I am going to change the application process for the speaking test soon, but I haven't changed it yet. So at the moment, if you'd like a free mock speaking test with feedback, you can contact me on Facebook or by Gmail. Information on how to contact me is given below. But I'll see you all again. Bye-bye.